and welcome back. In this Black Excellist presentation, we will highlight Doris Miller, the first Black hero of World War II.
Welcome to BLACKEXCELLIST.com, the site where we share Black excellence, opulence, and affluence. Our mission is to inspire you as we enlighten you.
Among the pantheon of America's heroes, none might seem more improbable than the black son of Texas sharecroppers and grandson of slaves, Doris Miller. So without further ado, let's get started. Doris Miller, who goes by the nickname Dory, was born October 12, 1919 in Waco, Texas, during the darkest days of the lynching epidemic that blighted the South. The son of sharecroppers Connery and Henrietta Miller, Miller entered A.J. Moore High School in Waco and became the school's star fullback. As the third of four sons in a family engaged in subsistence farming, he was compelled to drop out of school to help support his family. He supplemented the family's income by working as a cook in a small restaurant in Waco during the time of the Great Depression. But when he could no longer find work, he decided to join the military. It was a way for him to escape the oppression of the Jim Crow South, and it also would give him an opportunity to travel, which he longed to do. So less than a month before his 20th birthday, in September 1939, Miller enlisted in the U.S. Navy. Black men serving in the Navy at that time were not only ineligible for promotion, but by regulation, black soldiers could not be educated or assigned to any other specialty, such as signals, engineering, or gunnery. They were, however, co-signed to lowly tasks such as making the beds and shining the shoes of white officers. Frankly, battle-trained and capable African-American soldiers were relegated to positions of bellhops, chambermaids, and dishwashers. After completing a racially segregated boot camp training in Norfolk, Virginia, Miller was assigned to the USS West Virginia as a messman on January 2, 1940. He rose steadily in rank to the ship's cook, second class. Miller also had the responsibility of taking care of the ship's commander, laying out his clothes, shining his shoes, and serving his meals. In June 1940, President Franklin D. Roosevelt ordered the entire United States Pacific Fleet to move its main Pacific base from California to Pearl Harbor in the Hawaiian Islands. There was rising tensions between the United States and Japan, and the move was to demonstrate American power in the region and hopefully serve as a deterrent to Japanese aggression against America and its allies. However, the move was not without significant risk. The American Pacific Fleet was within striking distance of Japan's powerful navy. Then came the morning of December 7, 1941. Mess attendant second class Doris Miller was collecting laundry below deck just before 8 a.m. The U.S. Pacific Fleet came under attack from carrier-launched aircraft of the Japanese Imperial Navy. With the first Japanese torpedoes and bombs that blasted the ship, the alarm called the ship's crew to their battle stations. Miller raced up to the main deck where he encountered the ship's communications officer, who ordered him to the signals deck, where the ship's commanding officer, Captain Mervyn Bennison, lay mortally wounded. With his large physique, the powerful 22-year-old and ship's heavyweight boxing champion physically picked up and carried the captain to a place of relative safety. By then, the USS West Virginia had sustained heavy damage from 2 bombs and 6 Japanese torpedoes. The deck was awash with oil and water, and mayhem was everywhere. Amid the turmoil, with violence and fire raging all around, without order, Miller took control of an unattended .50 caliber anti-aircraft deck gun and started firing upon the incoming Japanese planes. This was Miller's first experience firing such a weapon because only white sailors were given the gunnery training. Miller continued his engagement with the enemy until the deck gun ran out of ammunition, firing the gun as if he had fired one all of his life. Miller laid down effective fire and managed to shoot down 5 Japanese fighter planes. Descending to the boat deck, Miller helped pull sailors from the burning water, unquestionably saving the lives of a number of men. By then, the critically damaged ship was flooded below decks and rapidly settling in the harbor's shallow water. Captain Bennison was officially pronounced dead, and the senior surviving officer gave the order to abandon ship. Doris Miller was one of the last 3 men to leave USS West Virginia. He and his shipmates swam 300 or 400 yards to shore, avoiding patches of flaming oil from a nearby battleship, Arizona, maneuvering through gunfire from the Japanese planes. Of West Virginia's 1,541 crew members, 106 were killed and 52 wounded. 7 of the 8 American battleships in the harbor that day were sunk or badly damaged. Miller attributed his survival to divine providence. Doris Miller himself stated, "When the Japanese bombers attacked my ship at Pearl Harbor, I forgot all about the fact that I and other Negroes can be only messmen in the Navy and are not taught how to man an anti-aircraft gun. It wasn't hard," he later recounted. "I just pulled the trigger and she worked fine." Over the course of the next 2+ months, Miller gave talks in Oakland, California, in his hometown of Waco, Texas, and in Dallas and Chicago, promoting war bond sales and accepting tokens of admiration from Black communities. Perhaps most significantly, on January 28, 1943, Miller addressed the first class of Black sailors to graduate from Camp Robert Smalls. The focus of Miller's talk at Camp Robert Smalls emphasized the tremendous pride he felt in the Navy and of the privilege of being a part of it. Miller also urged the new sailors to take advantage of their opportunities. Following a Christmas leave in 1942, when he saw his home and family in Waco for the last time, Miller reported to duty aboard the aircraft carrier Lipscomb Bay as a mess attendant, first class. During the Battle of the Gilbert Islands on November 24, 1943, his ship was torpedoed and sunk in the Pacific Ocean. The thinly armored Lipscomb Bay carried more than 200,000 pounds of bombs, 120 gallons of bunker oil, and many thousands of gallons of aviation fuel, all of which exploded. Most of the crew died instantly, and Lipscomb Bay sank within 23 minutes. The casualty list was among the largest of any Navy vessel in the war. Miller was listed as presumed dead, and after 365 days was reported as killed in action. His body was never recovered. Doris Miller's heroism and gallantry under fire on the day of the Pearl Harbor bombing merits special consideration. However, the Navy was very reluctant in acknowledging it. Within weeks of the disaster at Pearl Harbor, the Navy and its public relations officials released a commendation list of those whose actions during the attack stood out. They published a number of stories based on after-action reports of the attack of heroism equal to any in U.S. naval history. Surprisingly, but not shocking, they did not specifically list Doris Miller, the son of a sharecropper from Waco, Texas. Navy reports and news articles only praised an unnamed Negro messman hero who shot down several Japanese warplanes. At the time, numerous historians and political leaders argued that as gallant as were the sacrifices of the 16 white officers and servicemen who were awarded the Medal of Honor for their actions at Pearl Harbor, Doris Miller's exploits were at least of equal distinction, and all the more to be honored because of the oppressive racial stigma under which he performed so heroically. Members of the Black press knew that getting the proper recognition for Miller could undermine the stereotype that Black Americans weren't competent in combat. Journalists from the Pittsburgh Courier, one of the leading Black newspapers of the time, started to push Miller's story and started to lobby for his legacy. With pressure from the Black press and the NAACP, the Navy started to bend. Miller's actions initially earned him nothing more than a letter of commendation, but only after growing public attention and pressure from President Roosevelt did the U.S. Navy upgrade Miller's commendation to the Navy Cross of Valor, then the third highest honor for heroism. The Navy presented the honor to Miller personally on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier Enterprise on May 27, 1942, making him the first African-American recipient of the award. Miller's story changed the Navy and military forever, paving the way for the desegregation in the military ranks. In January 1942, 1 month after Pearl Harbor, the Navy's General Board met in Washington to discuss the possibility of Black men training for the general service ratings, allowing them to do more than cook meals and clean floors. In January 1944, less than 2 months after his death, the Navy opened a modest officer training program at Camp Robert Smalls for Black sailors, commissioning the Golden 13, the first 13 Black commissioned officers, on March 17, 1944. 80 years after he rescued shipmates from the burning USS West Virginia at Pearl Harbor and crossed the color line to strafe Japanese warplanes with anti-aircraft fire, Doris Miller's stature keeps growing. While awarded the Purple Heart posthumously, Doris Miller never received the Congressional Medal of Honor, which many believe he deserves. Those who fight for his legacy still lobby for its award today. Nonetheless, the Waco Veterans Affairs Hospital was named after him in 2014. His hometown honored him 4 years later with the dedication of the Riverside Doris Miller Memorial. Also in Waco, a YMCA branch, a park, and a cemetery bear his name. In Houston, Texas, and in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, elementary schools have been named for him, as has a Veterans of Foreign Wars chapter in Los Angeles. An auditorium on the campus of Huston-Tillotson College in Austin is dedicated to his memory. In Chicago, the Doris Miller Foundation honors persons who make significant contributions to racial understanding. The Navy has honored Doris Miller in numerous ways, including naming a dining hall, a barracks, and a destroyer escort for him. But on January 20th, 2019, the Navy made history when it announced at a Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration event that it would name a new aircraft carrier after Doris Miller. Supercarriers are typically named for U.S. presidents, but the USS Doris Miller is the first to be named for a Black American or any enlisted sailor for that matter. Navy officials said it will be the most powerful and lethal warship ever built. Construction is estimated to be completed in the 2030s when it will be entered into service. Doris Miller stood for everything that is good about our nation, said former acting Navy Secretary Thomas Modly during the ceremony last year. His story deserves to be remembered and repeated wherever our people continue to stand the watch today. He's not just the story of one sailor. It is the story of our Navy, of our nation, and our ongoing struggle to form, in the words of our Constitution, a more perfect union.
We appreciate the fact that you stayed with us until the end. Thank you for spending time with us, and don't forget to like this video. Also, make sure you subscribe so that you never miss a video. Bye for now. We will see you tomorrow.